The morning sun cast long shadows across New Busan Colony as Dr. Yuna Kim walked toward the research building. Her boots crunched on the gravel path between the small metal structures that made up their home on this distant world. She carried her sample case in one hand and a cup of synthetic coffee in the other. Yuna had been studying the strange blue plants that grew near the colony for 3 months now. The plants seemed to glow softly at night, and she wanted to understand why. As the colony's only xenobiologist, she spent most of her days alone in the lab, looking at plant cells under her microscope. The colony of New Busan sat in a valley surrounded by purple hills. 200 people lived here, mining rare metals from the rocky ground. Most colonists worked in the deep tunnels or ran the machines that processed the ore. They had built their settlement far from Earth, hoping to make new lives on this quiet world called Kepler 442c. Captain Lee Do-yun ran the colony with a steady hand. He was a former military officer who kept everyone organized and safe. The settlers respected him because he made fair decisions and never asked anyone to do work he would not do himself. Every morning he walked through the settlement, checking that all the equipment worked properly. That morning felt different somehow. Yuna noticed it first when she entered her lab. The plants she had been studying looked wilted and dark. Their soft blue glow had faded to nothing. She frowned and checked the environmental controls, but everything seemed normal. Park Jin-woo, the colony's head engineer, stopped by around noon. He was a quiet man who kept the power generators running and the water pumps working. "Have you seen anything strange today?" he asked Yuna. "Some of the miners are saying the animals in the hills have gone quiet." Yuna set down her microscope and looked at him. "The plants in my samples died overnight. All of them. I have never seen anything like it." Before Jin-woo could answer, they heard screaming from outside. Both of them ran to the window and saw people running between the buildings. In the distance, near the mining entrance, something large and dark moved between the structures. Captain Do-hyun's voice came over the colony-wide communication system. "All civilians report to the main hall immediately. This is not a drill. Security. Teams to positions." Yuna grabbed her emergency pack and followed Jin-woo outside. Other colonists were running toward the center of the settlement. She saw Choi Hana, the colony's head medic, helping an elderly man walk faster. Children cried as their parents carried them. Everyone looked frightened. Security Chief Kang Min-ho ran past them toward the mining area. He carried a plasma rifle and wore full body armor. 3 other security officers followed him. Yuna had never seen them look so serious before. What could make everyone so scared? Yuna wondered aloud. They reached the main hall where Captain Do-yun was trying to calm the crowd. His face looked grim as he spoke into his communication device. "I need a full report from Sector 7. What exactly did you see?" A miner named Lee Sang-yuk pushed forward through the crowd. His clothes were torn and dirty. Blood ran from scratches on his arms. "It was huge," he said, breathing hard. 12 feet tall, maybe more. It moved like nothing I have ever seen. Fast and quiet. It killed 3 people before we could even run." The crowd went silent. Children stopped crying. Everyone stared at the frightened miner. "What did it look like?" Captain Do-hyun asked. "Like a nightmare," Lee Sang-yuk replied. "It had armor like an insect but walked on 2 legs like a person. Its eyes glowed red and it had weapons that shot energy beams. It studied us before it attacked, like it was learning how we moved." Dr. Shin Haejin, the colony psychologist, stepped forward. "Are you sure about what you saw? Stress can make us imagine things." "I am sure," the miner said firmly. "It killed Kim Sun-woo and 2 others. It did not eat them or take anything. It just watched them die, then moved on like it was looking for something specific." Captain Do-hyun turned to address everyone. "We are sealing the colony. No one goes outside alone. Security teams will patrol in groups. I have sent a message to the nearest fleet asking for help." "How long until help arrives?" asked Oh Sung-jae, the communications specialist. 3 weeks minimum, the captain replied. The crowd stirred with worry. Outside, they heard a strange sound. It was like metal scraping against stone, but with a musical quality that made everyone feel uneasy. The lights in the hall flickered once, then went steady again. Yuna felt something she had never experienced before. As a scientist, she was curious about everything. But this creature frightened her in a deep way. Yet part of her mind was already working on the problem. Why would an animal kill without eating its prey? Why did it seem to study its victims? Kang Minho's voice came through the communication system. It is gone for now. We found tracks leading toward the eastern hills, but it will be back. Everyone stay inside and keep your emergency beacons active. That night, Yuna could not sleep. She lay in her small room, listening to the sounds outside. The normal night sounds of their world had stopped completely. No insects buzzing, no small animals moving in the grass. Even the wind seemed quieter. She thought about the miner's description, a creature that studied its prey before killing. That suggested intelligence. But what kind of intelligence would hunt humans for reasons other than food or territory? Around midnight, she heard it again. The strange scraping sound, closer this time. She went to her window and looked out carefully. In the pale light of the 2 moons, she saw a shadow moving between the buildings. It was huge and moved with purpose, checking each structure methodically. The creature stopped directly below her window. For a moment, she thought it might have sensed her watching. Then it continued on, disappearing into the darkness beyond the settlement. Yuna realized something important. This was not a random attack by a wild animal. Something intelligent was hunting them. And tomorrow, it would probably return to continue whatever it was trying to accomplish. She made a decision that would change everything. Instead of just hiding and waiting for rescue, she would try to understand this creature. As a scientist, she knew that understanding was the first step toward survival. The hunt had begun, but Yuna Kim did not yet know that she would soon become both the hunted and the hunter. The next morning brought bad news. Security Chief Kang Minho found 2 more bodies near the water treatment plant. The victims showed the same pattern as before. Clean energy burns, no signs of feeding or robbery. The creature had killed them quickly and moved on. Dr. Yuna Kim studied the scene carefully while the security team watched for danger. She knelt beside the bodies and examined the burn marks. The energy blasts had been precise, hitting vital areas with surgical accuracy. This was not the work of an angry animal. This was controlled, methodical killing. It knows exactly where. To hit humans to kill them fast, she told Captain Lee Do-yoon. That means it has studied human anatomy somehow. Maybe it dissected the first victims, suggested Kang Minho. Yuna shook her head. The bodies were left intact. It learned this information some other way. She walked around the area, looking for clues. The creature's tracks were clear in the soft ground. 4-toed feet with claw marks. But something else caught her attention. Scratches on the metal wall of the building formed a pattern. Lines and curves that looked almost mathematical. "Captain, look at this!" she called. The scratches were arranged in groups. 3 short lines, then 5, then 8, then 13. Yuna felt her heart beat faster. "These are Fibonacci numbers," she whispered. "What does that mean?" asked the captain. "It means our visitor understands mathematics. This is not just a smart animal. This is something that thinks like we do." That afternoon, Yuna convinced Captain Do-yoon to let her set up observation equipment near the colony's edge. Park Jin-woo helped her install motion sensors and cameras. If the creature returned, she wanted to study its behavior. "This is dangerous," Jin-woo warned as they worked. "What if it decides you are a threat? Then I will learn something important." "Before I die," Yuna replied. The other colonists thought she had lost her mind. Dr. Shin Haejin, the psychologist, tried to talk her out of it. "Trauma can make us act irrationally," she said. You should stay in the safe zone with everyone else. But Yuna felt something pulling her forward. Her scientific training told her that understanding the creature was their best hope for survival. Running and hiding would only delay the inevitable. That night, she waited in a small observation shelter Jinwoo had built. Her equipment hummed quietly around her. Outside, the two moons cast pale light across the empty ground between the colony and the hills. Around midnight, her motion sensors activated. Something large was approaching from the east. Yuna felt fear and excitement mix in her stomach as she watched her screens. The creature moved into view, and she got her first clear look at it. The miner's description had been accurate but incomplete. Yes, it was huge and armored like an insect, but it moved with grace that seemed impossible for something so large. Its red eyes swept back and forth as it studied the colony buildings. Most importantly, it carried tools. Not weapons exactly, but devices that it used to scan and measure things. It was collecting data just like she was. The creature approached, her shelter slowly. Yuna realized it had probably detected her equipment. Her heart pounded as the huge form stopped just outside her hiding place. For several minutes, neither of them moved. Then something unexpected happened. The creature began making sounds. Not growls or roars, but a series of tones that seemed organized like a language. It repeated the same sequence several times, then waited. Yuna made a decision that would have seemed impossible the day before. She stepped outside her shelter. The creature froze when it saw her. Its red eyes focused on her face with an intensity that made her knees weak. But it did not attack. Instead, it tilted its head like a curious dog. Yuna slowly knelt down and picked up a stick. In the dirt, she drew a simple mathematical symbol. 1 + 1 = 2. Then she looked up at the creature and waited. The alien stepped forward carefully. Using one of its clawed fingers, it drew its own symbol in the dirt. The marks were different from human numbers, but the pattern was clear. It was showing her 2 + 2 = 4. For the next hour, they communicated through mathematics and simple drawings. The creature was obviously intelligent. It understood concepts like addition, geometry, and even basic physics. When Yuna drew a circle and then showed the mathematical relationship for its area, the alien added its own symbols that seemed to express approval. But when she tried to draw pictures of humans and point to herself, the creature became agitated. It made harsh sounds and backed away. Clearly, it saw humans as something different from itself, something that needed to be studied and eliminated. When dawn approached, the creature gathered its tools and prepared to leave. But before it went, it did something that amazed Yuna. It drew a complex pattern in the dirt, lines and curves that formed a beautiful geometric design. It was not communication or mathematics. It was art. The alien looked at her one more time, made a sound that might have been goodbye, and disappeared into the hills. Yuna returned to the colony with news that would divide the settlement. She had made contact with their hunter. It was intelligent, capable of learning, and possibly even capable of creating beauty. But it still saw humans as subjects to be studied through death. "You talk to it," Captain Do-hyun said in disbelief when she reported her experience. "More than talked. We shared ideas. It understands mathematics better than most humans. It even created art." "Art does not matter if it keeps killing us," said Kang Minho angrily. "But it proves the creature thinks about more than just survival," Yuna argued. "Something that creates beauty can maybe be taught to value life." The colonists were split. Some believed Yuna had discovered a path to survival. Others thought she was putting everyone in danger by encouraging the creature's interest in them. Dr. Shin Haejin worried that Yuna was becoming obsessed. "Contact with an alien intelligence can be psychologically overwhelming," she warned. "You might be seeing what you want to see rather than what is really there." But Yuna knew what she had experienced. The creature was not just a killer. It was a being capable of wonder and creativity. Somewhere in that alien mind was something that might understand the value of preserving life rather than studying death. The question was whether she could reach that part of its consciousness before it finished whatever research it was conducting on the human colonists. That night, she prepared for another meeting. This time, she would bring more than mathematics. She would bring examples of human creativity and see if beauty could build a bridge between two very different kinds of intelligence. Outside, in the darkness beyond the colony, Red Eyes watched the settlement and planned the next phase of research. The alien had learned something interesting from its encounter with the small human female. These creatures were more complex than initial observations had suggested. Perhaps they deserved a more detailed study before the final conclusions were drawn. Dr. Yuna Kim spent the next day preparing for her second meeting with the creature. She gathered items from around the colony that might help her communicate better. Art supplies, musical instruments, photographs of Earth, and examples of human. Writing filled her backpack. Communication specialist Oh Seung-jae helped her set up better recording equipment. "If you are really going to keep doing this, we need to document everything," he said. "Maybe we can find patterns in how it communicates." "You think I am crazy too," Yuna said while checking her cameras. "I think you are the only one trying to solve our problem instead of just hiding from it," Seung-jae replied. "But promise me you will be careful." That evening, Yuna returned to her observation shelter. The creature appeared exactly at midnight, as if it had been waiting for her. This time it brought new tools, devices that hummed with energy and scanned the air around them. When she stepped outside, the alien made the same greeting sounds as before, but now Yuna was ready. She had brought a small electronic keyboard and played the same tones back to it. The creature's red eyes brightened with what looked like surprise. For the next hour, they experimented with sound communication. The alien could produce a wide range of tones and frequencies. Some were too high for human ears to hear properly. Others were so low they made Yuna's bones vibrate. But sound was only part of how the creature communicated. It also used body positions, the color and intensity of its glowing eyes, and even scents that Yuna could barely detect. The alien was speaking with its entire body in a language more complex than any human tongue. Seung-jae watched from the colony through long-range cameras. His recordings would later help them understand that the creature used electromagnetic pulses as well. Its body generated fields that carried information just like radio waves. "It is not just talking to you," Seung-jae told Yuna the next morning. "It is broadcasting. Somewhere out there, others of its kind might be listening." This discovery worried Captain Lee Do-yun greatly. "If there are more of them, we need to prepare for a larger attack." But Yuna disagreed. "I think it is reporting back to its people, like a scientist sharing research findings." She was right. The creature, which she had started calling Keth in her notes, was indeed a researcher. Through patient communication over several nights, she learned that it belonged to a species called the Nexari. They were an ancient race that studied other forms of life throughout the galaxy. The problem was their method of study. To understand how a species survived, they hunted it. To learn how it thought, they presented it with deadly challenges. From their perspective, this was the most respectful way to honor another race's abilities. "They hunt us because they think we are worth studying," Yuna explained to the Colony Council. "To them, being hunted is a compliment." "That is the most twisted logic I have ever heard," said Security Chief Kang Min-ho. Dr. Shin Haijin leaned forward in her chair. "But it explains why the creature studies its victims before killing them. It wants to understand human psychology under stress." The revelation created heated debates throughout the colony. Some people, led by farmer Lee Sang-yuk, believed Yuna was being manipulated. "How do we know this alien is telling the truth?" he demanded. "Maybe it is just playing games with us." Others worried about the implications. If the Nexari considered humans worth studying, what would happen when the research was complete? Would more aliens come to hunt them? Una continued her meetings with Keth despite the controversy. Each night brought new discoveries about Nexari culture and thinking. They were incredibly old as a species, having explored the galaxy for thousands of years. They had studied hundreds of different races, always using the same hunting methodology. Most disturbing of all, they genuinely believed this approach showed respect for their subjects. In Nexari culture, only the most impressive creatures deserved the attention of their hunters. Being selected for study was supposed to be an honor. But what happens to the species you study? Una asked, through their growing shared language, of sounds, symbols, and electromagnetic pulses. Keth's response chilled her. The research always ended the same way. Once the Nexari understood how a species survived and thought, they preserved detailed records and moved on. The subjects were no longer needed. This meant that every successful escape attempt, every clever defense the colonists created, only provided more data for Keth's research. Their own survival instincts were helping the alien complete its work faster. Mechanic Bae Soo-young and pilot Yoon Tae-hyung had been working on defensive systems and escape plans. When Una shared what she had learned, they realized their efforts might be making things worse. Every trap we set, every weapon we build, just teaches it more about human ingenuity, So-young said in frustration. So what do we do? Asked Tae-hyung. Stop trying to survive. We need to change the nature of the interaction, Una said. Instead of being prey that fights back, we need to become something else entirely. She had noticed something important during her conversations with Keth. The alien was fascinated by human creativity that served no survival purpose. When she showed it photographs of Earth's art museums, music concerts, and poetry readings, Keth struggled to understand why humans spent time and energy on such things. Your species creates beauty that does not help you survive, Keth had communicated in their mixed language. This behavior does not fit standard survival patterns. That was the key. Nexari research focused on survival behaviors. They understood hunting, fighting, fleeing, and breeding, but they had never encountered a species that created art, music, and literature simply because these things brought joy. Una began bringing examples of human creativity to their meetings. She played music on her keyboard and showed how humans danced just for fun. She drew pictures not to communicate practical information, but to capture the beauty of their world's sunsets. Keth observed these activities with growing confusion and interest. Each artistic expression challenged the alien's understanding of intelligent behavior. Why would evolution produce creatures that wasted energy on unnecessary beauty? We do not create art to survive, Una explained carefully. We create it because making beautiful things makes us happy. This concept was so foreign to Nexari, thinking that Keth had to report it back to its people. The electromagnetic broadcasts became longer and more complex as the alien tried to explain human behavior that made no evolutionary sense. Unknown to the colonists, these reports were causing concern among the Nexari collective, a species that created beauty for emotional rather than practical reasons, represented a new category of intelligence. It challenged fundamental assumptions about how evolution worked. As Una continued teaching Keth about human creativity, she began to see changes in the alien's behavior. It started arranging objects in its temporary shelters in patterns that served no practical purpose. It began making sounds that were pleasant to hear rather than just communicative. The hunter was learning to create beauty, but the question remained whether this would save the colonists or simply provide the Nexari with more complete data about human nature before their final elimination. Time was running short. Keth had mentioned that its research phase was nearly complete. Soon it would need to submit final conclusions to the collective. And based on everything Yuna had learned, those conclusions would determine whether humanity deserved to continue existing. Dr. Yuna Kim made a breakthrough on the 10th night of her meetings with Keth. She had brought a chess set and was trying to explain the concept of games that existed purely for mental enjoyment. As she demonstrated how the pieces moved, she noticed something remarkable. The alien was not just learning the rules, it was appreciating the elegance of the game's design. When Yuna showed how a knight could move in an L shape to avoid other pieces, Keth's eyes brightened in a way she had learned meant wonder. You created complex rules that served no survival purpose, Keth communicated through their shared language. Yet, following these rules produces satisfaction. This is very strange. Yuna realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. An alien mind was learning to find joy in pure thought, divorced from any practical benefit. This was exactly the kind of understanding that might save her people. The next day, she gathered volunteers from the colony to help with a new plan. Artist Im Young-ho agreed to create sculptures specifically designed to demonstrate human aesthetic principles. Teacher Kwon Ji-young organized the colony's children to perform traditional Korean dances. Musician Go Yoon-bi composed new pieces that translated mathematical relationships into beautiful sounds. "You want us to put on a show for the creature that has been hunting us," said Farmer Lee Sang-yuk skeptically. "I want us to show it that humans are more than just clever animals," Yuna replied. "We need to prove that our minds work in ways the Nexari have never encountered before." Some colonists remained doubtful. Security Chief Kang Min-ho worried that gathering people in the open would create opportunities for more attacks. Dr. Shin Hae-jin questioned whether they were dealing with genuine alien intelligence or if Yuna was projecting human qualities onto a sophisticated predator. But Captain Lee Do-hyun supported the plan. "We have tried hiding and fighting. Neither approach has worked. Maybe it is time to try understanding." That evening, Yuna brought Im Young-ho's first sculpture to her meeting with Keth. The artist had created a twisted metal form that captured light in beautiful ways without serving any practical function. When the alien examined it, its entire body language changed. Keth spent nearly an hour studying the sculpture from different angles. It made soft sounds that Yuna had learned indicated deep concentration. Finally, it communicated a question that surprised her. Why did the creator of this object invest time and materials in something that provides no survival advantage? "Because creating beautiful things makes humans feel good inside," Yuna explained. "We call this feeling happiness or joy." This concept challenged everything Keth knew about intelligent behavior. In Nexari culture, every action served a purpose related to survival, reproduction, or gaining knowledge. The idea of expending energy simply to experience positive emotions was revolutionary. Over the following nights, Yuna introduced more examples of human creativity. She showed Keth recordings of music concerts where thousands of people gathered just to hear pleasant sounds. She explained how humans wrote poetry to express emotions rather than share practical information. She demonstrated how children played, games that taught no useful skills but brought laughter and joy. Each example deepened Keth's confusion and fascination. The alien began asking questions that revealed its growing understanding of human nature. "Your species creates unnecessary complexity in your environment," it observed. "You make your shelters more elaborate than needed for protection. You prepare food in ways that require extra time but taste better. You form social bonds that extend beyond mating pairs or family groups." "Yes," Yuna confirmed. "We do all of these things because they make life more interesting and enjoyable. But this behavior should make your species weaker. You waste energy on non-survival activities." "Maybe," Yuna said. "But it also makes us more creative when we face real problems. Our art teaches us to see things in new ways. Our music helps us work together better. Our stories help us understand each other." This explanation seemed to resonate with something deep in Keth's alien mind. The creature began spending time alone, arranging rocks and pieces of metal in patterns that served no function except to please the eye. It started making melodic sounds during their conversations, turning communication into something approaching music. Most remarkably, Keth began creating its own art. Using materials found around the colony, it built sculptures that combined alien sensibilities with principles it had learned from human examples. The results were strange and beautiful, unlike anything either species had produced alone. But these changes in Keth worried its own people. The Nexari Collective monitored their researchers' reports and noticed disturbing trends. Keth was spending too much time on non-essential activities. Its research data included unprecedented amounts of information about behaviors that seemed counterproductive to survival. Your study subject appears to be influencing your behavior patterns, came a message from the collective during one of Keth's regular reports. Maintain proper research distance to avoid contamination of objective analysis. Keth found itself caught between loyalty to its species and growing appreciation for human creativity. The researcher's duty was to remain detached and analytical, but humans had shown it forms of beauty and joy that no Nexari had ever experienced. Meanwhile, Yuna noticed changes in how other colonists viewed their situation. Watching Keth create art and show genuine wonder at human creativity helped them see the alien as something more than a threat. Children who had been terrified now asked questions about what the space visitor was like. Engineer Park Jinwoo began leaving small mechanical puzzles near the colony's edge. Keth would solve them during its visits, then create even more complex versions. A strange friendship was developing between human ingenuity and alien intelligence. Medic Choi Hana started treating the situation like a cultural exchange rather than a hostage crisis. If we can teach it to value beauty and creativity, maybe it will understand why destroying us would be wrong, she said. But time was running short. Keth's reports indicated that the research phase was nearly complete. Soon the alien would need to submit final conclusions about human nature to the Nexari Collective. Those conclusions would determine whether humans were classified as a species worth preserving or one that posed a threat to galactic order. Yuna realized that her next meeting with Keth might be their last chance. She needed to show the alien something that would fundamentally change how the Nexari viewed humanity. Something that would prove humans offered unique value to the galaxy rather than representing a dangerous anomaly. She began planning a demonstration that would combine every aspect of human creativity they had shared. Art, music, dance, storytelling, and mathematical beauty would come together in a presentation designed to touch whatever passed for a soul in the alien mind. The fate of New Busan Colony, and possibly all of humanity, would depend on whether beauty could truly tame the beast that had come to study them. Tomorrow night would provide the answer. The emergency came at dawn. Keth arrived at the colony earlier than ever before, moving with urgent purpose. Its electromagnetic communications were chaotic, filled with distress patterns that made Dr. Yuna Kim's recording equipment overload. Something is very wrong, she told Captain Lee Do-yun as they watched the alien pace near the colony's edge. It has never behaved like this before. When Yuna approached for their usual meeting, Keth immediately began rapid communication. The message it conveyed chilled her to the bone. A Nexari research fleet was approaching their star system. 12 massive ships carrying hundreds of researchers, all intent on conducting the same type of studies that Keth had been performing. But these would not be gentle investigations. The fleet planned systematic hunting operations across all human colonies in this sector. Millions of people would die as the Nexari gathered comprehensive data about human survival behaviors, social structures, and psychological responses to extinction-level threats. Your species has been classified as a significant research priority, Keth explained through their complex communication system. The collective believes humans represent an unusual evolutionary development that requires thorough analysis. How long do we have? Yuna asked, though she dreaded the answer. The fleet will arrive in 6 standard rotations. My research phase concludes in 3 rotations. After that, I am required to eliminate all remaining subjects to prevent data contamination. Yuna felt the blood drain from her face. In 3 days, Keth would complete its transformation from confused researcher back to efficient killer. And 3 days after that, an entire fleet would begin hunting humans across multiple worlds. She ran back to the colony to share this devastating news. The emergency council meeting that followed was the most difficult in New Busan's history. "We need to evacuate immediately," said Security Chief Kang Minho. "Get everyone to the transport ships and flee before the fleet arrives." "Where would we go?" asked pilot Yoon Tae-hyung. "If they are targeting all human colonies, nowhere is safe." Engineer Park Jin-woo suggested trying to fight. "Maybe we can damage their ships when they arrive." "With what weapons?" replied Captain Do-hyun grimly. "Our mining equipment against alien warships." Dr. Shin Haejin raised the most painful question. "What about Keth? Can we trust anything it told Yuna? Maybe this is part of its research strategy." Yuna shook her head firmly. "Keth is genuinely conflicted. The relationship we have built is real. It does not want to complete its mission anymore." "Then why does it have to?" asked teacher Kwon Ji-young. "Because defying the collective would make Keth a traitor to its own species, and because it believes the research must be completed to prevent humans from being classified as a dangerous anomaly." This revealed the true scope of their problem. If Keth failed to submit complete research data, the Nexari Collective might decide humans were too unpredictable to be allowed to exist. Instead of hunting them for scientific purposes, they would simply eliminate the entire species as a potential threat. Yuna realized there was only one possible solution. They needed to provide the Nexari with data so compelling that it would change their fundamental understanding of intelligence and creativity. Not just information about human behavior, but proof that humans offered something valuable to the galaxy. "We need to give them a demonstration they will never forget," she announced. "Something that shows human creativity is not a wasteful anomaly, but a gift that could benefit all intelligent species." The colonists spent the next 2 days preparing frantically. Artist Im Young-ho created a massive sculpture garden that told the story of human creativity from cave paintings to space exploration. Musician Go Yunbi composed a symphony that incorporated mathematical principles Keth had shared about Nexari. Acoustic preferences. Teacher Kwon Ji-young organized the children to perform a dance that demonstrated how human social cooperation created beauty rather than just survival advantages. Communications specialist Oh Seung-jae prepared recording equipment to broadcast their presentation across multiple frequencies, ensuring the approaching fleet would receive every detail. But the most important element was Keth itself. The alien had been learning human creativity for weeks. Now it would need to demonstrate that learning to its own people, essentially arguing for humanity's right to exist. On the night before Keth's research deadline, Yuna made a desperate proposal to the alien. "Help us show your people that humans are not just subjects to be studied. We are partners who could teach the Nexari new ways of thinking and creating." Keth's response revealed the depth of its internal struggle. "If I argue for human preservation, the collective may decide I have been compromised by prolonged contact with subjects. I could face punishment or elimination. But if you do not argue for us, millions of innocent people will die," Yuna replied, "including children who have never hurt anyone." The alien was quiet for a long time. When it finally responded, its communication patterns showed the electromagnetic equivalent of pain. "Your species has taught me to value beauty over efficiency, to find joy in creation rather than just analysis. These are not Nexari concepts. I am no longer the same being that arrived to study you. That is not contamination, Yuna said gently. That is growth. Learning from others makes us better, not weaker. Keth made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. It would risk everything to give humanity a chance to prove their worth to the Nexari collective. But success would require perfect cooperation between human creativity and alien understanding. The next morning, Keth helped the colonists set up their presentation in the valley outside New Busan. The alien used its advanced technology to create amplification systems that would broadcast their demonstration to the approaching fleet with perfect clarity. As the Nexari ships entered the star system, Captain Do-hyun received a communication from the fleet commander. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking through translation systems. Research vessel, report status of human colony analysis. Keth responded with carefully chosen words. Analysis incomplete. Subjects demonstrate unprecedented creative behaviors, requiring direct collective observation. Recommend immediate evaluation before final classification. There was a long pause. Then the fleet commander's response came through with ominous certainty. Researcher shows signs of subject influence. Land immediately for debriefing and subject termination. Any delay will result in your classification as compromised and elimination along with contaminated data. The alien fleet was 3 hours away from landing. In that time, Yuna and her people would have one chance to create something so beautiful, so uniquely human, that it would change how an entire galactic civilization viewed intelligence and creativity. Everything depended on whether beauty could truly transform the beast that had come to judge them, and whether the beast in turn could convince its own people that some things were too precious to destroy in the name of science. The Nexari fleet descended from the sky like dark stars falling to Earth. 12 massive ships, each larger than New Busan colony itself, settled into the valley with mechanical precision. Dr. Yuna Kim watched from her position near the presentation area and felt her heart race with fear and hope. The fleet commander, Vorthnal, emerged from the lead ship surrounded by an escort of Nexari warriors. This alien was larger than Keth, with armor that gleamed like black metal and eyes that burned with cold intelligence. When it spoke, its voice carried the authority of countless conquered worlds. Researcher Kethvar, report immediately for contamination. Assessment, Vorthnal commanded. Human subjects will be terminated while evaluation proceeds. But Keth stepped forward boldly, placing itself between the fleet commander and the colonists. Honored Commander, these subjects have demonstrated abilities that require direct observation before termination. They possess forms of intelligence unknown to our previous research. Explain, Vorthnal said curtly. Keth gestured toward the presentation area where the colonists had gathered. They create complex behaviors that serve no survival function, yet enhance their cognitive capabilities. They invest significant energy in activities that appear wasteful, but actually strengthen their social structures and problem-solving abilities. Artist! Im Young-ho stepped forward despite his obvious terror. His hands shook as he unveiled the sculpture garden he had created. Metal and stone formed flowing shapes that captured light and shadow in ways that made the eye want to follow their curves. Mathematical principles governed their proportions, but emotion gave them life. We call this art, Yuna said, speaking directly to the fleet commander. We create it not because we must, but because we choose to. It serves no practical purpose except to bring us joy and help us see beauty in our world. Vorthnal examined the sculptures with the same detached analysis Keth had shown weeks earlier. Inefficient use of materials and labor, resources wasted on non-functional constructions. But Keth moved closer to its commander. Observe more carefully, honored Vorthnal. Notice how the proportions follow mathematical relationships that please the optical sensors. The creators have discovered principles of aesthetic harmony that could enhance our own environmental designs. Before the commander could respond, musician Go Yunbi began playing her symphony. The music started with simple mathematical progressions that Keth had taught her about Nexari acoustic preferences. But gradually, human elements crept in, emotional variations that transformed pure mathematics into something that touched the heart as well as the mind. The Nexari warriors stopped moving as the music filled the valley, their electromagnetic communication patterns, visible to Yuna's equipment, showed confusion and something that might have been wonder. Sound patterns without strategic communication value, Vorthnal observed. But its voice lacked the certainty it had shown before. Teacher Quan Ji-young signaled the children, and they began their dance. 30 young colonists moved in patterns that demonstrated human cooperation and creativity working together. Their movements told the story of their species, from ancient hunters working as teams to space explorers reaching for the stars. The dance showed how humans used beauty and creativity to strengthen their bonds with each other, how art and music and stories helped them work together more effectively than simple survival instincts could achieve. They use non-survival behaviors to enhance survival outcomes, Keth explained to its commander. Their creativity makes them more adaptable, more capable of solving unexpected problems. But Vorthnal remained unmoved. Interesting, but irrelevant. Unusual behaviors do not justify preserving a potentially dangerous species. Complete your termination protocols. That was when Yuna played her final card. She stepped into the center of the presentation area and spoke directly to the assembled Nexari. Commander Vorthnal, I challenge you to explain something your researcher discovered during its time with us. She gestured toward Keth, who had been quietly arranging stones in beautiful patterns during the presentation. Your own researcher has learned to create beauty, not because its survival required it, not because the data demanded it, but because experiencing creativity brought it satisfaction. The other Nexari turned to stare at Keth in shock. Creating unnecessary beauty was completely against their cultural principles. A Nexari who wasted energy on non-functional activities was showing signs of serious mental breakdown. Researcher Kethvar, explain this behavior, Vorthnal commanded with dangerous quiet. Keth faced the most important moment of its existence. It could deny the changes humanity had brought to its thinking and preserve its standing among its people. Or it could defend what it had learned and risk everything. Honored Commander, these humans have taught me that intelligence can serve purposes beyond survival and reproduction. They create beauty because the act of creation brings joy. They tell stories because sharing experiences strengthens their social bonds. They make music because harmony pleases them. Keth paused, then continued with growing confidence. I have experienced these activities and found them satisfying in ways our research had never considered. Perhaps there are forms of intelligence we have never encountered because we eliminated the species that possessed them before we could learn. The silence that followed was absolute. No Nexari in the fleet's long history had ever argued for preserving subjects based on personal satisfaction with non-survival behaviors. Vorthnal stepped closer to Keth, its imposing form radiating menace. You admit to contamination by subject. Influence. I admit to growth through learning, Keth replied firmly. Is that not what research is supposed to achieve? For a moment, it seemed the fleet commander might order Keth's immediate execution. But then something unexpected happened. One of the other Nexari researchers approached the stone pattern Keth had created. The arrangement follows principles of mathematical harmony, the researcher observed. But the specific choices of stone size and position seem designed to create visual pleasure rather than communicate information. Exactly, Keth said. The humans have shown me that creating beauty for its own sake exercises cognitive functions we rarely use. It may represent an evolutionary adaptation we have never studied because we eliminated the species that possessed it. More Nexari began examining the human creations with new interest. The music was still playing, and several aliens were unconsciously moving in rhythm with its patterns. The children's dance had ended, but its message of cooperative creativity had clearly reached some of the observers. Vorthanal watched its subordinates with growing concern. If contamination could spread through the fleet, the entire research mission would be compromised. All subjects will be terminated immediately, it commanded. Researcher Kethvar will be detained for full psychological reconstruction. But before anyone could move, communications specialist Oh Sungjai activated the transmission system. The entire presentation, including Keth's defense of human creativity, was broadcast across all Nexari frequencies directly to the collective's homeworld. "Too late, Commander," Yuna said with quiet satisfaction. "Your people have already seen what we can teach them." The response from the collective came within minutes. The voice of the ancient Nexari Council spoke with authority that even Vorthnal could not challenge. Research Fleet Designation 7. Maintain current position. Human subjects are reclassified as research partners pending further evaluation. Researcher Kethavar is commended for exceptional data collection regarding previously unknown forms of intelligence. Vorthnal's body language showed complete confusion. "Honored Council, the subjects appear to have contaminated our researchers' cognitive processes." "Negative," came the Council's response. "Researcher Kethvar has discovered forms of intelligence that could advance Nexari understanding. The subjects will be preserved for extended cooperative study. Establish permanent research station at current location." As the implications sank in, Yuna felt tears of relief flowing down her face. Not only had New Busan been saved, but humanity had earned recognition as partners rather than subjects. Over the following months, the former mining colony became the galaxy's first interspecies research center. Humans taught Nexari about creativity, art, and the joy of making beautiful things. In return, the Nexari shared advanced technology and knowledge of countless other civilizations. Keth remained on New Busan as Yuna's research partner. The alien had grown beyond its original nature, becoming something new through contact with human creativity. Together, they developed protocols for peaceful first contact with other species, always beginning with attempts to find common ground in mathematics, beauty, and the universal desire to understand the cosmos. The colonists, once terrified subjects, marked for elimination, became ambassadors for humanity throughout the galaxy. They proved that their species offered something precious to the cosmic community, the ability to find beauty in unexpected places and to transform potential enemies into friends through patient understanding. Captain Lee Do-yun often stood in the colony's expanded central plaza, watching human children play alongside young Nexari in games that neither species could have imagined alone. The sight reminded him that sometimes the greatest victories came not from defeating monsters, but from helping them discover their own capacity for wonder. Dr. Yuna Kim, who had once been called beauty by colonists who watched her tame their beast, continued her work bridging different forms of intelligence across the galaxy. She proved that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their fighting ability, but their willingness to see potential friends in the most unlikely places. And in the end, that was the most human thing of all, the refusal to accept that any intelligent being was beyond the reach of understanding, creativity, and hope.